winning the chaotic and competitive business world is all about the 3 P's, they say, which is perception, preparation, persistence. Persistence is what you bring to the table, the fighter spirit. But here in Bisnomics, in your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes, our intention is to enable you with enhanced perception and better preparation to really challenge your competition. I'm Tharunu Amarasekara. Today, our focus will be on the Sri Lankan textile sector. Now, this is one industry that dates back to some of the ancient historic times. They say even when the banished Prince Vijaya landed in Sri Lanka, even at that time, there are certain incidents which refer to certain types of textile. How far has this industry come from back in the days to what it is today? We talk about the apparel sector, but the vitality of the textile sector cannot be discounted at any given occasion. To talk about this, we have joining us today the chairman of Lanka Salusala Limited, who is none other than Denzil Perera. Denzil, welcome to Bisnomics.
Thank you.
Denzil, let's talk about the journey of Salusala. Now, you are attached to an enterprise that has quite a significant importance in our economy. At various times, at different phases, this has been a key entity. Let's talk about that first, from what it was at the start and the journey so far.
So, thank you, Tharunu. Salusala actually first initiated in 1967 by late Sirima Bandaranaike, the world's first female prime minister. She had an economic policy to promote local business, and she was basically trying to promote manufacturing sector in Sri Lanka. So back by then, I think the trade minister was T.B. Langaratna. So Salusala was among one of the entities that they established in 1967 under CWE. But in 1971, it was incorporated as State Trading Corporation Salusala. And after 20 years, 1991, it was basically reincorporated as Lanka Salusala Limited. So that was coming directly under the Ministry of Finance as a profit-making entity. During the 20 years time, you know what happened, because open economy came to Sri Lanka, introduced in 1978-79.
I believe that would have brought some challenging
very
times as well.
tough times. I'm sure we were not both were not born. What had happened was that Sri Lanka was predominantly into manufacturing of textile, and there were Pugoda, Vatex, Tultex likewise,
Yes.
and
But Salusala was the
trading arm. And then, so obviously, you know, we started getting a lot of manufactured finished clothing to
Correct.
various things
imports
into Sri Lanka, and Salusala could not sustain its number one position, the pioneer position, any longer. And so from there onwards, it has been quite a bit of tough time for Salusala, gone through a lot of turbulences, and in 2016, it came to a point where the government didn't want to sustain Salusala anymore. So it was going to be wound up, and VRS was given to all the employees, and under that about 193 employees had gone on the VRS scheme. Government has spent about 30 million rupees to pay, because prior to that, government was basically maintaining the staff, paying salaries, but they were not making, they were on compulsory leave. So you can see it's a waste of government money.
Correct.
And then the current government, that is under the presidency of His Excellency the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he came up with this mandate to promote local business and local traditions and etc. So there was a special ministry incorporated, established under the Ministry of Industries, which we know as the Ministry of State Ministry of Handloom, Batik and Local Apparel.
So it is in a phase of revival as at now.
Now,
you represent not only one entity. I think when we had the discussions, you were very much focused on that this is not the journey of an entity, this is about an industry.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the handloom and the textile, the traditional textile makers of Sri Lanka, because
Yeah.
as I said, there's a historic significance also in this.
Yes.
But unfortunately, from what I see, when you go down south, sometimes you see people
Yeah.
still operating some of those machinery. But
Yes.
Denzil, I don't know whether I'm wrong, but the way I see it, it's sad that it's slowly becoming more of a tourist attraction rather than economic contributor.
True.
But in your view, what are the challenges that these traditional textile manufacturers, especially the handloom operators in Sri Lanka, that they are facing?
Yeah. So the traditional handloom in, I mean, as you rightly said, Sri Lankans were into this from time immemorial. From Kuwaini's time, we
Correct.
were, you know, manufacturing, basically, we can say manufacturing clothing.
Correct.
But in the recent past, especially in 80s and 90s, Sri Lanka was quite into batik and handloom both.
Correct.
So if you take batik, I remember as a kid I used to wear batik, and a lot of my friends, they have similar experiences. So we were depending on certain raw material, for example, from Japan to bring down dyes, and then the wax and all that, and then the clothes that are basically the primary raw material for batik. And then handloom, on the other hand, was predominantly it's what do you call handloom. So it says that it's basically handmade.
Yes.
But in the recent past, with the introduction of power looms, it has got you know, basically mechanized, and machines are used. Machines have replaced people. So even for the batik, also the same thing happened. In Indonesia, they started printing batik. So it was much easier than, you know, cheap as well. Going through that whole mill of, you know, creating, because batik process is quite tedious. You need to do a lot of work, lot of hard work, and then you need to deal with dyes and waxes and designs and all that. So that's one end of the story. Other end is this. In both ends, when artisans and the cottage industries didn't get that revenue that they used to get,
Correct.
only a few large scale ones could sustain. What happened was that it was no longer generating enough revenues for these families who got involved in this business. And of course, you know, with the loss of incomes, the next thing comes is recognition. I mean, when you can't sustain your family, you basically, you know, next generation would not look at it.
Correct.
So if you, as you rightly said, when you go to certain areas in Sri Lanka, you can see the ladies who are involved in handloom probably above 50. And the second generation has not joined this force. So we are basically going to say goodbye to an industry that we have long been in the history.
I mean, when they see when the younger generation sees their parents or their elders struggling, they don't want to get in.
They don't want to get in.
And this is a common problem in many industries.
Many industries, like you say, clay, pottery, batik, handloom, various industries have the same issue because the economic factor. So we can see certain brands, certain players in the market, they have carved out a niche with these products and they sell at a premium price. And it has reduced the movement and it has reduced the numbers. So as a result, those artisans and the cottage industries, they don't get enough revenues. And one of the things that we need to look at is make it a more mass market product so that many people can buy. And that is one of the key elements we have in our plans. And also to see whether we can actually look at export markets. So that's a very important element because there are a lot of Sri Lankans living abroad. They would definitely would want to go for this, and batik and handloom is also part of the current trend in the market. You see, people are going back to their roots. They are trying to find where we are from and what we are inherited with. So we can see the boom in the industry. We can see the customer behavior changes. Consumers are basically looking for these things. So definitely there's going to be opportunity for this industry, and that could be within the country as well as outside the country.
Excellent. Let's talk about the pandemic. It's very hard to talk of any industry or anything without talking about the real impact it has had on the pandemic.
Yes.
Now, Denzil, what are your thoughts? How bad? We know it would have had a bad impact. It was a bad hit. Question is, how bad was the already struggling industry and now hit by the pandemic? How severe is the impact?
See, again, if you look at the rural sector, the artisans, the cottage industry, small scale ones, it's a severe hit on them. Like even if you take, like, for example, the prominent brands in the industry like batik and handloom, they can't get people to come and work. So it's bad as that. I mean, it can't get any, I mean, it's going from bad to worse. Now, if you take the garment industry, that is basically in the private sector now, like starting from MAs to Brandix to Hydra Money to various other big players, they are also struggling because it's very difficult for them to maintain their workforce, get them to come on regular basis to work. And
there are sudden lockdowns and so on, transport issues,
even accommodation issues, because they are trying to find way. I mean, they are struggling so much. But having said all that, there is going to be potential in this industry. There's going to be huge potential. For example, there is a new middle income segment in the Chinese market. They are looking for more and more products. So if you take all these apparel sector companies, they have a huge potential. And at the same time, sectors like batik and handloom, they will have a opportunity in the Western markets, especially European and American markets, even Middle Eastern or African markets. So private sector is playing their part really well, but there is a lot of struggle that they go through because they need to maintain certain standards, especially they are manufacturing under world-renowned brands. So it's not an easy task. At the same time, the small timers are suffering because they have no technology at all. The industry has been basically in a standstill because there's no improvement in the technology. So they are suffering as well. In the meantime, we can see that the local apparel outlets, ready-made garment outlets, which used to sell to the end consumer, they are also struggling because they can't bring down finished garments now. Of course, there is a good side also because Sri Lanka was more like a dumping yard for certain countries to,
interesting word.
Yeah, dumping yard for some time because they just used to send anything here, and we used to sell anything, we used to buy anything. So in that sense, it's good. But when we look at it as an industry, for the retail sector, the brand owners or those who are selling final products to the end consumer, they are also struggling.
So they could actually buy from the local textile
sector. They can buy from the local textile sector. So we actually want to now, there are 600 handloom training centers in Sri Lanka which are coming under these government sector institutions, and Honorable State Minister Dasari Jayasekara is planning to open up 200 of them immediately so that we can start manufacturing handloom, batik, etc. So this production has to be basically bought by the local brands, and they start selling. So we're actually trying to introduce a B2B channel under Salusala to cater into these brands so that they can have a corner in the outlets for Salusala, and we can actually provide that guidance and the designs aspect of it. For example, one of the complaints that we see in the market is that designs have not evolved. Designs are more or less the same, for like if you go
not kept up with the trends,
not kept up with the trend, and it's not getting in the right direction. So we are trying to get into partnerships with for example, University of Moratuwa, National Design Center is anyways part of it. So we are trying to come up with collaborations to come up with more and more new designs so that the market will have enough design options, and also to have collaborations for technology transfer. So we are trying to revive this industry in that aspect so that we can have a increase in the production, and that could be basically transferred to the outlets which are basically under private ownership, but they can be a part of this journey as well.
And has there been any kind of support, because we saw the government did give out certain relief packages to various sectors and different industries. Has there been any kind of support for the textile sector as well, especially the handloom and batik, as you said, these local textile manufacturers, especially the cottage industries, the smaller players, Denzil?
Yeah, so I think one of the one of the biggest steps that the government has taken is to re-establish this, especially having a separate ministry for that. That was one of the key things. We got involved in the preparation of 5-year plan for the ministry, and we looked
focused on this industry as well.
Focus on these industries because there are 3 industries. One is batik, other one is handloom, third one is local apparel. So when you look at all these 3, for example, if you take saris, close to about 5 million saris are brought down to Sri Lanka in a year.
Wow.
So how can we reduce it on a gradual approach was something that we looked at. Then if you look at right now the tourism industry is having a bad hit.
Absolutely.
And doesn't mean that it's going to continue forever.
Correct.
So there will be a point that we come out of it. At that point we need to be ready to cater this, because when the tourism picked up, we can see that like for example for interior, for bed linens, for curtains, there is a huge opportunity for the handloom and batik sector. So we need to now, I believe we need to now get ready with our back end so that front end can be always planned out during the time that the industry is open.
For sure.
Yeah.
Interesting thoughts there. And in terms of the readiness to the market, as you very correctly said, I think it's very important that any organization or any industry for that matter stays ready for the trends. And as you very correctly said, Denzil, rather than going on the focus on saying, okay, we are giving you textile, I think those micro level focuses like focusing on bed linen type of products, don't you think that is the way forward?
That is the way forward, because Salusala, when you take Salusala as a brand, it has had credibility. It has, people had the faith, the confidence in it. I mean, if you ask from
green color board, I remember even as a kid when we used to go to school, we used to see that in certain places.
Okay, so they now, I mean, the original logo is actually with red and blue.
Yes.
So, like, if you ask your parents, they would say they have memories.
Correct.
There's this nostalgic effect with Salusala. So
I remember my mom going to an outlet and taking me right after school.
Exactly. I recently met a gentleman. He said there's a national flag that he purchased at one of the Salusala outlets,
and he still has it.
He still appreciates the quality. He says that it's still in good quality and good condition. So you can see, because it's a government entity and the main motive is basically to provide the consumer with the best, and that motive is still there.
Correct.
And we need to basically ride on this brand equity that Salusala has built over years, and it has basically been out of scene is out. I mean, out of mind. So that's what has happened. Now we need to bring it back.
For sure.
But at the same time, we need to look at this niche end, the high end. What we can do around it, and how we can connect these artisans with the high end market. That is also something we need to look at. And at the same time, like you said, bed linens to pillowcases to saris to sarongs to various
things. More product approach as well.
More product approach.
We are going to discuss on that more, Denzil. How can the local textile sector match up to the global demand, and what government policies do we need for that? Let's talk about that on the other side of this short break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. Our focus is on the textile sector of Sri Lanka, the way forward, the challenges ahead, and what can the government and also the industry do about it. And we are in conversation with Denzil Perera, who is the chairman of the Lanka Salusala Limited. Denzil, now let's speak about the aspect of market economy coming in. We saw in the 1970s opening up of the economy, embracing and adopting to the market economy principles. Do you think that not just the entity you represent, but do you think the overall textile sector of Sri Lanka has fallen behind and not matched up to the dynamisms of the market economy? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's not just the market economy which made the changes. It's the policies that we adopted. From time to time, under various presidents, Sri Lanka has taken drastic decisions in regard to this industry. So you can see...
Denzil, I think this policy inconsistency is not only for this industry, it's across our entire economy since the time we could remember.
Yes. One of the main challenges out of this context is, one of the big problems we have in bringing down investors to this country is that every 5 years, there is no certain point where you can say, okay, after 5 years, whether the policy will continue or not. So, someone who is making a business plan with a ROI for 7 years or payback in 7 to 8 years has no faith in this country to come and invest. So, I think this is something we need to discuss at a different forum, maybe by different people. But when it comes to this particular industry, you see, this is around about the same time Sri Lankan apparel sector grew. There was no issue, I think, with the entrepreneurship ability. There was no issue with the thinking. There was no issue with talent. And today, Bangladesh, we are talking very high of Bangladesh. They are maintaining 8% economic growth purely due to the textile apparel industry.
Second biggest export after China.
And who helped them out with that? Sri Lankans. It's the Sri Lankans who went from here and basically started working there, and they are still there, and that's why they respect Sri Lanka also. There's no other reason for them to respect Sri Lanka so much, because they know the economy was built by our people. So what I'm trying to tell you is that one angle of it is that we were basically pumping a lot of energy into this sector of apparel, and on the other hand, we lost focus on this side of the story.
We forgot the source.
We forgot the source.
And focused on the product.
Focus on the product. and I think that was mainly due to, I mean, in any government, any I mean, we can see when we go through the history, certain decisions have been influenced by maybe few individuals.
Understood.
And based on their requirements, certain policy decisions have been made. And then you can see the repercussions we are seeing after 20, 30 years, we are seeing the repercussions today.
You are to say situations where the country didn't come first, personal agendas came.
Would have come first. So had we continued the momentum that we built in the 70s or maybe early 80s, we would have been in a different position today. And I think what this government is trying to do, what the present government, the ministry and the industrial ministry and Ministry of Handloom, Batik and Apparel is trying to do is basically to get back on the track and make sure that we are basically getting there, which is not an easy task. But I believe with the current setup, with the current environment, we have a kind of a opportunity that we need to grab.
And just to add, the fact that there are so many supply chain blockages and so many supply chain challenges, that makes us really consider why don't we get the textile made in Sri Lanka rather than wait for it to come through various other routes, because as we know globally, and until I believe early 2022, the supply chains are basically clogged around the world, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think that's exactly, you're spot on, because supply chain wise there are issues now, and there are a lot of, I mean, this industry has to be basically formalized. We need to take a serious look on certain angles of the production, where it's going to happen. For example, the Honorable State Minister had a plan of establishing apparel parks, so that you can buy whatever that you need, one-stop shop kind of a concept. And as I told you, there are 600 training centers, and out of which 200 is going to come live now. And then many industries, not just the apparel industry per se, many industries, even the financial sector, even the banking sector, various sectors are like, trying to see how they can help this industry. So I think we have that mentality, the background and the mindset now in place. So we need to basically drive this and implement.
Let's talk about branding now. I know this is your pet area. You are a brand consultant as well for so many leading brands. Denzil, let's talk about the branding aspect of our textile sector, not only for the entity you represent, which is Salusala, but as you very correctly said, there is a brand equity to that. But textiles made in Sri Lanka. Now, garments or apparels made in Sri Lanka, there is a particular brand equity to that. Textiles made in Sri Lanka, not the most commonly heard or not the most popular ones, because we do have some textile giants in this country as at now who are even exporting to some of the top brands, listed in the stock market, and they are doing quite well. But still, textiles made in Sri Lanka is not really a global power brand. What can be done to really bring Sri Lankan textiles to that level?
I think as far as textile is concerned, if you take the volumes, I mean, Sri Lanka is only 20 million people living here, and that's all we can think of. Whereas if you take upcoming competition from Vietnam to Bangladesh, China, India, we are like surrounded with all the giants in the industry. So what we need to look at is that we need to start manufacturing textile here for local consumption. For example, school uniforms, we are importing. Maybe for Triforces, maybe for the health sector. Likewise, there are so many areas that we need to begin manufacturing in Sri Lanka for the local consumption, and we can start it there. As far as branding is concerned, so this is more like commodity. You don't need to brand this. There is demand, and you can start supplying. As far as the branding aspect is concerned, we need to look at, now if you take for example main markets like Chinese market, their taste is totally different to what it's from the African market. And then you go to Europe, it's totally different.
And Africa, I believe, is also a powerhouse in textile today.
Textile today, yes. So textile will not have international market for us. We will have a market for finished garments. That could be either in handloom or batik or even in local apparel. So local apparel sector is basically manufacturing under various reputed brands. and we don't need to really start it from scratch. So we need to look at how we can take batik and handloom to the international market under our brand, under Sri Lanka brand, and basically cater to those needs. So if you take Middle Eastern market, that's a different segment. They are, wishes and whims are totally different. How they choose colors is different to what the Chinese market would do, and that is totally different when you go to the European and the American market. So we are looking at actually giving franchises around the world in different countries to establish this brand as an international brand. That is one of the elements that we look at. And also locally we look at basically Salusala had about 30 outlets from which people could buy whatever that they need in say their provincial or district level. So we want to re-establish this, and then we need to basically get those outlets to cater to the demand in that area. Like there could be hospitals, there could be various institutes which would need. Now for example, we were discussing now, if you take all the government institutions in Sri Lanka, each government institution needs a national flag and various other flags.
Correct.
So if you start supplying that itself is a massive quantity for us to supply. So I'm thinking the way forward is Salusala to get into collaborations with private sector investors and getting into manufacturing in small scale and start supplying for local demand, and at the same time develop, let the back end be handled by the producers, and Salusala be in the forefront branding and
the
taking
one that
it
brings the parties together as well. I think that's a good strategy looking at the way forward. Let's talk about matching up to the global demand. Now, as you very correctly said, things like batik, for example, and especially handmade textile. I mean, when we go to Europe, Denzil, you can see how much people are willing to pay for high quality, good handmade material, right? Handmade products.
Yeah.
And here we have in Sri Lanka people, the producers really struggling. So clearly, I think there is a bit of a mismatch between the markets and the supply as well. In your perspective, what can be done to match up to this global demand and to really milk this opportunity?
Yeah. So very good question. I think that's one of the key areas we are looking at, because if you take the manufacturers of handloom or batik, what they get paid is the bare minimum.
Correct.
And those few brands which are basically selling here, they would buy it at the lowest possible price, and they would sell it at a premium price, as I said before. So in between,
would exploitation be a right word to use?
Could be, yes. I wouldn't use the word, but yeah, close. So what we need to do is we need to have an interface where we showcase these artisans, these cottage industries, the small ones, who are basically how much of a struggle they go through. Believe me, Taridu, when I went to see one of these places, I was surprised to see the effort that they take in finishing up one sari. Right? When you see that, you buy it. Only problem is that our people or even foreign buyers, they don't see this. So we are working on a platform to basically bring this up and show them, look, this is how your sari is made. This is how your sarong is made. That is one aspect of it.
And it's good for branding as well.
Definitely, it's a part of the brand plan. Second thing is, as far as the branding is concerned, awareness can be created, associations can be made, but the product, if the product is not good, that's a problem. So we need to look at quality standards, especially packaging. We need to look at packaging upgradements. We need to upgrade our packaging. We need to have, like Ceylon tea has that, that element, the packaging element.
The quality packaging.
They have nailed it very well. Ceylon tea has a special logo. Whoever manufactures and exports, they need to take that logo. And we need to do the same thing. So we are actually in the process of doing it, implementing it. And then you can see the products that they make, they need to have finish. And also the design, as I said before, the material. Now if you take batik, it's conventionally has been on cotton and that's it. But it needs to go on now silk material. Like for example, in the summer, maybe the guy who is living in, or the girls, maybe the customers in America, they would want something really light.
Correct.
Right? So maybe beach wrappers, maybe shawls, various things. So it's not that we need to bring in the same complex elements of batik into this. We need to come up with new designs. We need to look at it from a new angle, new point of view. and that is the way forward for us. But if somebody wants to buy hardcore batik, I would call it hardcore batik, which has like lot of
very expressive
and lot of colors, lot of work. Like to make one piece, it will take days.
Yes,
that kind of a thing could be at a premium price. But
and still there will be a market for it.
There is a market. There definitely is a market. Now I went to see one of the batik places in Kandy. I think the owner has unfortunately passed away, but the wife was there. So they were saying that they didn't have time to have lunch prior to the pandemic, but today there is no one there, and I can see products like hanging everywhere in this showroom. It's a massive showroom, and back end you get the production facility. So we need to revamp these and get them all back on track and start creating a brand for Sri Lankan handloom and batik, so that we can look at options and opportunities in the future.
What kind of adoption of digital technologies have the local textile players adapted to? Let's talk about that on the other side of this short break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics. We are in conversation with Denzil Perera, the chairman of Lanka Salusala Limited. Denzil, now let's talk about government policy. I know we did refer to it at certain points, but to exactly rejuvenate the local textile sector, not just the entity but the entire sector, what are the policies and plans in place?
Well, I'm actually studying certain things which have been in place.
For sure.
But adding to that, now recently you could see that government has made a policy statement saying that the regional requirements can be basically purchased from regional entities. So in line with that we need to basically spread our wings into certain areas, so that we can empower the manufacturers and we can get Salusala franchisees to satisfy those needs. Addition to that, also you could see His Excellency the President, he basically made a very clear statement that he needs to improve, he needs to develop the batik and handloom sector, and for that he was basically making certain provisions. Especially there are provisions made to increase the training aspect of it, because without that we can't survive, we can't take this forward. When the current generation is gone, it will no longer be here. So one of the key things is that we need to preserve this industry, and then this should be coupled with tourism, because when it comes to tourism, we can have certain elements of this being hotspots for tourists to visit, and at that point they witness it and they can purchase it as well. So addition to that,
just to add, now for example, if you go to the Netherlands, now in their country and their culture, this wooden shoes is a very important part of their fashion heritage. And you get workshops where foreigners can go and learn how to make their own wooden shoes. You can even make your own shoes and bring for yourself. And why not have similar programs like that for our things like batik as well? Isn't that a possibility?
It's going to come out actually. Actually, it's coming under a latest trend called experience marketing.
Correct.
So
experiential tourism.
Experiential tourism and authentic tourism also. So you get people. We have plans to get people to come and maybe work in the loom, so that they get the experience, and maybe they can do some batik work.
Correct. And take it home, their own batik
work. So those are the things that we have in our plans right now, because that way we basically go with the trend and we make it more experiential thing for them. And as I told you before, in branding we look at awareness, association, and then the product, but what matters is the loyalty. So when we do this kind of a thing, they go with that nice sweet memories, and they would definitely talk about it, and that will be something that they carry very dear to their heart, and they will maybe recommend it to their friends. So that will create a whole buzz about Sri Lankan batik and handloom industry as well.
And I believe a similar tactic is also shared by the glass blowing industry of the islands of Italy, like this Murano and Burano, where they make the product in front of you. So you really want to buy it because you saw that being made.
Yes. That's actually been quite famous in certain industries, like even pottery. You can do that. So all in all, government is trying to basically safeguard the local manufacturers and not basically curtailing imports of finished garments to Sri Lanka. That's something really important, because in order for us to provide them with opportunities, we need to safeguard them. So that economic policy is something really important, and also it helps government at this point of time, because considering the current situation in the economy due to the COVID pandemic, the challenges that it has brought to us.
Sure.
So likewise, there are many policies that are going to be adopted, and we'll definitely be working with government, especially the Ministry of Finance. Example, all the government institutions can buy from Salusala.
Correct.
So that that basically production will go to the people who actually need that for their survival, or maybe for their sustaining their production facilities, etc. So those are some of the areas that are already in place.
Interesting.
And there will be many things to come in the future.
Denzil, like I said before as well, being a brand specialist, you know the impact that digital technology, digital space is having on most industries, actually on every industry you could think of. Let's talk about the digital technology, digital marketing adoption among the local textile sector. As you very correctly said, this has been one sector that has kind of lagged behind on many market aspects.
Yeah.
What about digital? Today we see for everything people turning to digital, even to find suppliers for textile.
Yeah.
People go on digital.
Yeah.
If somebody is looking for Sri Lankan textile manufacturers, are they there in the digital space?
See, at their own private level, certain manufacturers who have the muscle power, they have gone on the digital space.
Who have the big enough bank balances to invest,
and also who have the knowledge. See, this is not only about money. I mean, to go digital, it doesn't take that much of money. You can do it. If you are smart, you know how to get there. It's just that they don't have the knowledge. So I think we are trying to form a central unit which is going to assist the local manufacturers to get in there. So we create a platform where we can accumulate the details of the buyers from various countries, maybe even Sri Lanka itself, and then to connect them with these production facilities that are basically scattered throughout the island. They don't have the specialty knowledge and capability to develop brands and to go on digital media. So that is one of the service extensions that I would like to, I'm planning to launch in the future.
Excellent. Especially as you said, some of the more senior members, the elderly crowd who might be doing it on their own, their children are no longer interested. Forget digital space, they haven't even properly used a mobile phone.
Yes, true, very true. So, Sri Lanka, we have 50% mobile internet penetration now. With the pandemic, it got accelerated from 40 to 50 jump happened overnight. So there is a long way to go. But as far as the international markets are concerned, we need to definitely have, basic how you are a specialist in this, you know how SEO works, you know how we need to position as a country, then as industry. So if somebody searches on the internet for Sri Lankan batik, where it would go.
Correct.
Certain, for example, for Salusala even, there is no proper website right now. I'm not pointing finger at anyone. It's an opportunity for us to come together and develop this industry and do our best so that the generations to come can actually get the benefit out of it. So in that aspect, I see certain opportunities especially in the social media, because it's a very cost-effective media.
And
very targeted, specific. You can reach whatever the market you want. You can select what criteria you want to promote something on, and also we can give them certain virtual experiences. We can upload visuals, we can upload videos to show how things happen, which was not a possibility like 10, 20 years back.
Bring more visibility to the industry, because nowadays, whether it's chocolates or whether it's textile, people are wanting to know how is it at the origin. The store looks nice, nicely packaged, but at the place where it's getting made, and that's why, for example, you get some chocolate brands where they guarantee saying, look, our entire supply chain is free of slavery, and as a result, you are willing to pay like 4 times more than the usual chocolate bar's price. And so maybe, as you were mentioning, even though there are so many elderly members who might not be from the digital era, that could be a case where your entity could really come into the picture, isn't it? And bring them to the digital world.
Definitely. So because digital is the way forward, there is no doubt about that. And going international is definitely something to do with digital. And we are actually looking for partners. We are inviting people to join hands with us. Of course, a lot of people have shown interest joining hands with us, not for money, purely because they want to do something to this country, the economy, and to the sector. So I really appreciate and I encourage more and more people to join hands with us, because I mean, if you take the top end companies in Sri Lanka, they can easily join hands with us, and we can go a long way, which will definitely help the industry, Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan economy, and the overall brand of Sri Lanka.
Denzil, from your words, what I get is that most of the current suppliers, especially at an individual or family level, as you, for example, that example of you took about the shopping candy. Now, when their children see a struggle in this industry, they won't really want to be involved. So, more or less, who is involved now is like the last of the Mohicans for this industry. What is your message to anyone who is watching this show today, who is thinking, should I get involved in this industry or not? I've seen my parents struggle. I've seen the difficulty my elders are going through. Should I be in this industry or not? If a youngster who is watching this show is having that question and doubt in their mind, what are your final few words to them?
My final few words is that this is your thing. This is your country. This is my country. This is our country.
This land belongs to all of us.
This land belongs to all of us, and also this industry. It's as I told you, from time immemorial we've been in this industry.
Correct.
So this is something which we have in our blood, and certain designs that we have, certain aspects of the production we have is unique. It's only with us. So it's our duty to basically continue this and take it forward, and that could only be done if the youngsters get involved with this. I mean, they are very creative, they are very knowledgeable, they have information in their hand, they know how technology works. So it's just a matter of, matching the two generations. I mean, you and I are coming from that intermediary generation where we basically can be the bridge between two generations. So we are here in the middle, and we want the youngsters to come and basically embrace this and join hands with us. That's why we are inviting people to cooperate with us, partner with us, collaborate with us.
And there are training and learning opportunities as well.
There are training and learning opportunities as well. Sometimes some people come for, when you go to rural areas, they come for the training experience, and during the training they get paid something, very little, and they're happy with what they get paid. So when the training period is over, they go back, and when they come to work, they need to earn it because they don't get that fixed amount.
Yes.
So some people, after the training period, when the training period is over, they leave the whole thing because they think they can't make that they can't earn that by doing the work. So these are the kind of things which are happening, and these are things that we need to basically arrest, and I would say get the bull by the horn, because if we continue like this, it's not going to give us any good results. So
for sure.
Younger generation, there is a lot they can do. They are more passionate. I see a lot of youngsters having various creative ideas. They love this country.
Yeah.
They want to do something to this country.
So focus on an industry that is vital to the economy and one of our own industries.
Yes, correct.
Denzil, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your thoughts, for giving an important message and an update about this very vital local industry, the way forward, the challenges. I think it was very insightful. You weave the story of our textiles very well, and I believe we have a clear understanding of where we are, and for the younger generation of this country, this is an opportunity to be a part of something more than just an industry, in fact something that is a part of our heritage. Thank you very much, Denzil, for joining us, and wish you and the team good luck.
Thank you for having me. Wish you the same.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode of Bisnomics. This is your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. I will see you with the next episode.